What if I told you that the gap between mediocrity and mastery isn't talent, luck, or even intelligence? What if the difference between being average and being extraordinary comes down to just 10 simple rules? In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 proven principles that separate the best from the rest. These aren't motivational fluff or theoretical nonsense. These are battle-tested strategies used by Olympic athletes, billionaire entrepreneurs, and world-class performers across every field imaginable. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete roadmap to excellence. But here's the catch. Knowing these rules won't change your life. Only applying them will. So stick with me until the end, because rule number 10 is the one most people ignore, and it's the most powerful of all. Let's dive in. Before we jump into the rules, let me tell you a quick story. In 1985, a young basketball player was cut from his high school varsity team. The coach told him he wasn't good enough. That rejection could have ended his career before it started. But instead, that player used those 10 rules we're about to discuss. He practiced with obsessive focus. He studied his weaknesses. He visualized success thousands of times. And eventually, that rejected high school player became Michael Jordan, widely regarded as the greatest basketball player of all time. The point? Excellence isn't reserved for the naturally gifted. It's available to anyone willing to follow the right system. And that system starts with rule number 1. Rule number 1. Commit to mastery, not just results. Here's where most people get it wrong. They focus on the destination instead of the journey. They want the six-pack abs, the promotion, the successful business, but they're not willing to fall in love with the process. Think about a chef. An amateur chef looks at a recipe and thinks, I just need to make this dish tonight. But a master chef thinks differently. They're obsessed with understanding why ingredients work together. They practice knife skills for hours. They study techniques from different cultures. The meal is just a byproduct of their commitment to the craft. When you commit to mastery, something magical happens. Results become inevitable. You stop asking, when will I succeed? And start asking, how can I improve today? Let's say you want to become a great public speaker. Instead of focusing on giving a perfect speech, commit to mastering the fundamentals: vocal tonality, body language, storytelling structure, audience psychology. Study one element deeply each week. Record yourself, get feedback, obsess over improvement. This shift in mindset transforms everything, because when you're committed to mastery, failure isn't devastating, it's data. Every setback becomes a lesson, not a roadblock. But commitment alone isn't enough. You need focus, which brings us to rule number 2. Rule number 2. Practice deliberate focus. There's a difference between practice and deliberate practice. Most people practice mindlessly. They go through the motions, repeat the same mistakes, and wonder why they're not improving. Anders Ericsson, the psychologist who studied expert performance, found something fascinating. When he studied violinists at a prestigious music academy, he discovered that the best violinists didn't practice more hours than the average ones. The difference was how they practiced. The elite violinists practiced with intense concentration. They identified their weakest areas and focused exclusively on those. They practiced in shorter, highly focused sessions. They pushed themselves to the edge of their abilities, working on things that were uncomfortable and challenging. Deliberate practice means you're always working on your weakest link. If you're a writer and your dialogue is weak, you don't keep writing full stories. You spend dedicated time crafting conversations until they feel natural. Here's how to practice deliberately. First, identify exactly what you need to improve. Be specific, not "I need to be better at sales," but "I need to handle objections about price more confidently." Second, isolate that skill and practice it repeatedly. Role-play those price conversations 100 times. Record yourself. Get feedback. Third, stay at the edge of your comfort zone. If it feels easy, you're not growing. Deliberate practice should be mentally demanding. Think of it like weightlifting. You don't get stronger by lifting the same weight you lifted last year. You progressively overload. Deliberate practice is progressive overload for your skills. Now, you can focus and practice all you want, but without rule number 3, you'll never reach your potential. Rule 3. Embrace failure as feedback. Rule number 3. Embrace failure as feedback. This is where most people quit. They hit a wall, experience failure, and interpret it as a sign they're not meant to succeed. But here's the truth. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone to success. Thomas Edison tested over 10,000 different materials before finding the right filament for the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's not just a cute quote. That's a fundamental mindset shift that separates masters from amateurs. Every expert was once a beginner who failed repeatedly but kept going. The difference is how they interpreted those failures. They didn't see them as judgments of their worth, they saw them as information. Imagine you're learning to code and your program keeps crashing. An amateur thinks, "I'm terrible at this, maybe I'm not smart enough." A master thinks, "Interesting, what's causing this crash? What can I learn from this error message?" Same situation, completely different interpretation. Here's a simple reframe. Every time you fail, ask yourself 3 questions. First, what happened? Get objective about the facts. Second, why did it happen? Analyze the root cause. Third, what will I do differently next time? Turn the lesson into action. This transforms failure from something that stops you into something that propels you forward. But even with the right mindset about failure, you need structure. That's where rule number 4 comes in. Rule 4. Build systems, not goals. Rule number 4. Build systems, not goals. Goals are overrated. I know that sounds controversial, but hear me out. Goals tell you where you want to go, systems get you there. Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, talks about this brilliantly. He says, "Losers have goals, winners have systems." When he wanted to become a successful cartoonist, he didn't just set a goal to get published, he built a system. Draw every single day, study what makes comics funny, submit work consistently. The goal was the destination, the system was the vehicle. Here's the problem with goals. They're binary. You either achieve them or you don't. And once you achieve them, what then? But systems keep you moving forward indefinitely. Let's say your goal is to lose 20 pounds. That's fine, but what happens when you hit that number? Do you celebrate and then slide back into old habits? Probably. Now imagine instead you build a system. I work out 4 times per week, I eat protein and vegetables with every meal, I track my food intake, I get 7 hours of sleep. That system will get you to 20 pounds lost, but more importantly, it'll keep you there because you've built sustainable habits, not temporary efforts to hit a number. To build a system, identify the daily or weekly actions that, if done consistently, will inevitably lead to your desired outcome. Then make those actions as easy and automatic as possible. Don't focus on write a best-selling book, focus on write 500 words every morning before coffee. The book becomes a natural consequence. Systems work even better when you pair them with rule number 5, which is about strategic energy management. Rule number 5. Manage your energy, not just your time. Rule number 5. Manage your energy, not just your time. Everyone talks about time management, how to be more productive, how to squeeze more tasks into your day. But that's missing the point entirely. Time is fixed. You get 24 hours just like everyone else. But energy? Energy fluctuates. And the quality of your work depends far more on your energy levels than the amount of time you have. Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Power of Full Engagement, worked with elite athletes and discovered something crucial. The best performers don't work longer hours. They work in highly focused sprints, then recover fully. They understand that energy comes in 4 forms: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and all 4 need to be managed. Physical energy. This is about sleep, nutrition, and exercise. You can't perform at your peak on 5 hours of sleep and junk food. It's non-negotiable. The best performers treat their bodies like assets, not afterthoughts. Emotional energy. Your emotional state affects everything. If you're stressed, anxious, or resentful, your work suffers. Build practices that restore emotional energy. Gratitude, connection with loved ones, activities that bring you joy. Mental energy. This is your focus and attention. Protect it fiercely. Stop multitasking. Close distractions. Work in 90-minute blocks with full recovery in between. Spiritual energy. This is about purpose and meaning. When your work aligns with your values, you have unlimited energy. When it doesn't, everything feels like a grind. A writer might have 3 hours available to write, but if they're exhausted, emotionally drained, and distracted, those 3 hours produce garbage. Conversely, if they're well-rested, focused, and emotionally centered, they might produce their best work in 90 minutes. Energy management is powerful, but it works even better when combined with rule number 6. Rule 6. Seek feedback from masters. Rule number 6. Seek feedback from masters. You can't see your own blind spots. That's why feedback is essential. But not all feedback is created equal. Getting feedback from your friends or family is nice, but it won't make you great. You need feedback from people who are already masters in your field, people who can see what you can't see. When Warren Buffett was starting out as an investor, he didn't just read books. He sought out Benjamin Graham, the father of value investing, and learned directly from him. That mentorship accelerated his learning by decades. Think about that. Buffett could have spent years figuring things out on his own, making expensive mistakes. Instead, he learned from someone who had already made those mistakes and discovered what worked. How do you get feedback from masters when you're not Warren Buffett? Here are 3 strategies. First, study their work obsessively. If you want to be a great filmmaker, don't just watch films. Study them. Break down the shot composition, the pacing, the storytelling techniques. You can learn from masters even if you never meet them. Second, find ways to be useful to them. Masters are busy, but if you can offer value, provide assistance, or help them in some way, you create opportunities for learning. Work for them, assist them, be around them. Third, join communities where masters gather. Online forums, conferences, workshops, masterminds. Get in rooms where the best are operating. Their standards will raise yours. If you're learning graphic design, don't just ask your cousin if your logo looks good. Post your work in professional design communities. Study critiques that established designers give to others. Hire a professional for a consultation. Their perspective will be radically different from non-experts. Feedback helps you improve faster, but improvement also requires something uncomfortable. Rule number 7. Rule number 7. Step outside your comfort zone daily. There's a zone where you're comfortable, where things feel easy and safe. Then there's a zone just beyond that, where things are challenging but manageable. That's called the learning zone, and that's where all growth happens. If you stay in your comfort zone, you stagnate. If you jump too far into the panic zone, you overwhelm yourself and quit. The magic is in consistently pushing just beyond comfortable. Think about learning a new language. If you only practice with apps and never speak to real people, you'll stay mediocre forever. But the first time you try to have a real conversation in that language, terrifying! You stumble over words, you feel embarrassed, you make mistakes. But that discomfort is growth. Every conversation pushes your skills forward faster than 1,000 app lessons ever could. Here's how to do this effectively. Every single day, do one thing that makes you slightly uncomfortable in your field. If you're learning public speaking, speak up in a meeting. If you're learning to write, share your work publicly. If you're learning sales, make one more cold call than you want to. A musician might practice scales comfortably for hours, but if they never perform in front of people, they'll never become truly great. The discomfort of performing, of being judged, of potentially failing in public, that's where the real skill develops. Notice I said slightly uncomfortable. You're not trying to traumatize yourself. You're trying to expand your comfort zone gradually. Think of it like stretching. A gentle stretch creates flexibility. Forcing yourself into splits when you're not ready creates injury. Stepping out of your comfort zone consistently will accelerate your progress. But there's a multiplier that makes everything work better. Rule number 8. Rule 8. Cultivate obsessive curiosity. Rule number 8. Cultivate obsessive curiosity. The best in any field share one common trait: they're insatiably curious. They don't just want to be good, they want to understand everything about their craft. Curiosity is the fuel that powers long-term excellence. When you're genuinely curious, practice doesn't feel like work. Learning doesn't feel like a chore. You're pulled forward by fascination, not pushed by discipline. Leonardo da Vinci is remembered as a genius artist, but what made him extraordinary was his curiosity about everything. He dissected corpses to understand anatomy. He studied water flow to paint better rivers. He investigated optics to master light and shadow. His art was incredible because his curiosity was boundless. Whatever field you're in, become obsessively curious about it. Don't just learn the surface-level skills, go deeper. If you're a chef, don't just follow recipes. Ask why certain flavors work together. Study the chemistry of cooking. Learn about the cultural history of dishes. Visit farms to understand ingredients. If you're a software developer, don't just write code. Understand how computers actually work at a fundamental level. Study different programming paradigms. Explore the history of computing. Read the source code of masters. Here's a simple practice. Every day, ask yourself why 5 times about something in your field. Take any technique, concept, or practice and dig into the reasoning behind it. Why do we do it this way? Why does that work? Why did this fail? What if we tried this instead? Why hasn't anyone done that? This kind of deep curiosity separates people who follow instructions from people who innovate. In the 1970s, Steve Jobs visited Xerox PARC and saw their graphical user interface. Most people would have thought, that's cool. Jobs thought, why isn't this on every computer? What would happen if we made this accessible to everyone? That curiosity led to the Macintosh and changed computing forever. Curiosity will take you far, but it needs to be paired with rule number 9 for maximum impact. Rule number 9. Build a support system. Rule number 9. Build a support system. Excellence is not a solo journey. Behind every great performer is a network of people who support, challenge, and elevate them. You need 3 types of people in your support system. mentors who are ahead of you, peers who are alongside you, and mentees who are behind you. Each serves a different purpose. Mentors show you the path. They've made the mistakes you're about to make. They can guide you around pitfalls and accelerate your learning. We talked about seeking feedback from masters earlier. Those are your mentors. Peers keep you accountable. They're fighting the same battles you are. You share struggles, celebrate wins, and push each other forward. When you want to quit, they remind you why you started. The Beatles didn't become the greatest band in history alone. They had each other, pushing one another to write better songs. They had George Martin, their producer and mentor, shaping their sound. They had a whole ecosystem of support in Liverpool's music scene that challenged and inspired them. To build your support system, first, identify people one level above you and ask to learn from them. Second, find peers in your field and create accountability partnerships or mastermind groups. Third, teach someone who's earlier in the journey than you. If you're building a business, you might have a mentor who's already built and sold a company. You might have a peer group of other founders who meet weekly to discuss challenges. And you might mentor a college student interested in entrepreneurship. Each relationship serves you differently. The mentor guides, the peers support, the mentee deepens your learning. A strong support system will carry you through tough times. But there's one final rule that ties everything together, and it's the most important. Rule 10. Stay consistent, not motivated. Here it is, the rule that separates dreamers from achievers. The rule most people ignore because it's not sexy or exciting. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes. You feel pumped up after watching an inspiring video or reading a great book. But 2 days later, that motivation evaporates. Consistency doesn't care about motivation. Consistency means you show up whether you feel like it or not. You do the work when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you'd rather do anything else. The best in the world aren't the most motivated. They're the most consistent. They've built systems and habits that carry them forward even when motivation disappears. Jerry Seinfeld has a famous strategy called "Don't break the chain." Every day he writes jokes. He marks a big X on his calendar. His only job is to not break the chain of X's. Some days he writes brilliant material. Some days it's mediocre. Doesn't matter. The chain doesn't break. That consistency over decades made him one of the greatest comedians of all time. Here's how to build consistency. First, make your important activities non-negotiable. They're not a "if I feel like it." They're scheduled, like brushing your teeth. Second, lower the barrier to entry. If you want to work out consistently, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to write consistently, open your document before you go to bed so it's ready in the morning. Third, track your consistency. Like Seinfeld's chain, visual progress is powerful. Mark off every day you do the work. The longer the streak, the more you'll want to protect it. Stop waiting to feel motivated. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop waiting until you're ready. Start now. Start small. Start badly if you have to, but start. And then show up again tomorrow. A writer who writes 500 words every single day for a year will produce 182,500 words. That's 2 novels. A writer who only writes when inspired might produce 20,000 words in that same year. The difference isn't talent, it's consistency. Consistency creates compound growth. Small improvements don't feel significant in the moment, but over months and years, they create exponential results. If you improve just 1% every day for a year, you'll be 37 times better by the end. That's the power of consistency. Let's bring this all together. You now have 10 rules that can transform you from average to exceptional. Rule 1. Commit to mastery, not just results. Fall in love with the process. Rule 2. Practice with deliberate focus. Target your weaknesses intentionally. Rule 3. Embrace failure as feedback. Every setback is data. Rule 4. Build systems, not goals. Create sustainable processes. Rule 5. Manage your energy, not just your time. Work on your capacity. Rule 6. Seek feedback from masters. Learn from those ahead of you. Rule 7. Step outside your comfort zone daily. Growth happens at the edge. Rule 8. Cultivate obsessive curiosity. Never stop asking why. Rule 9. Build a support system. You can't do this alone. Rule 10. Stay consistent, not motivated. Show up every single day. These rules are simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. The question is, will you actually apply them? Most people will watch this video, feel inspired for a day or two, and then go back to their old patterns. Don't be most people. Choose one rule, just one, and implement it this week. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, this week. Because the gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't about information. You have the information now. The gap is about implementation. Start today, stay consistent, and watch what happens when you actually apply what you know. If this video helped you, leave a comment telling me which rule resonated most. And if you're serious about leveling up, subscribe for more content on mastery and excellence. Remember, the best in the world aren't lucky. They're not more talented than you. They just follow these principles relentlessly. Now, go be great.